Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're well. Today's video, I'm going to start off with a question. What if the market is telling you something incredibly important, but almost no one is paying attention? Today, something unusual happened in the stock market. The broader market struggled overall. Risk sentiment was shaky. Energy prices were moving higher. Macro concerns were re-entering the conversation. And a lot of our favorite tech stocks traded very cautiously. But in the middle of all that uncertainty, one small corner of tech did something very different. The memory sector surged today. Companies like Micron, SanDisk, Western Digital, and Seagate Technology all showed strong positive price action today. And when you see an entire subsector move against the tone of the broader market, it is usually a signal that there's something greater happening underneath the surface. It's not just momentum. It's not just a trade. Today was a structural shift. We aren't just seeing a good day for memory today. We are witnessing the great decoupling of this sector in real time. Today, the memory sector and the memory stocks officially declared independence from the broader market chaos. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about in today's video. Because if you can understand why these stocks are moving differently, you will start to see something bigger forming in the market. Today, I'm going to show you why the smart money is piling into the Fantastic Four. And in my opinion, why these companies now are the most important aspect of the entire AI stock. But if you haven't done it already, hit like, hit subscribe. I would love to see this video get 100 subscribers. So if you like this content, if you enjoy my channel, smash the subscribe button if you haven't already. Let's do this together, but let's dive in and talk about what we saw in the market today. First, let's take a look at the performance, what we saw in our major indexes for the day. The Dow Jones was down about 120 points. Guys, that's about 820 points now. In 2 days, it has shredded. We saw similar pressure on the other indexes as well. The NASDAQ was down over 200 points, about 1%, and we saw the S&P down just a little less as well. The volatility index is still hovering around that 27. You know we got to get this down below 20. We need to get the fear and anxiety out of this market to see money rotate back into these tech stocks, to see money rotate out of safe havens back into the Magnificent Seven, back into the tech sector overall. And that's exactly, take a look at the Magnificent Seven right on the left side of your screen, from Amazon down to Tesla. All of them face significant pressure today. Amazon down almost 2 points. Here, let me switch it over to percentages. Down just under 1%. Apple down over 2%. Google about a 0.5 percentage. We saw Meta go down almost 4%. Some of that is based on the news that their avocado model, their large language model, is being delayed. They're not going to launch it. They're going to wait till later in the year. It's not performing the way they would like. So that definitely accelerated the selling pressure on Meta today. Microsoft, Nvidia, and Tesla all also down. But there is a sector that has decoupled overall, and I'll drive you down to that. As I mentioned, it's the memory sector. Guys, they are moving differently than the broader tech sector and the broader market overall. Look at Micron. Micron up 5% today. Oh, excuse me. Up 5% today. That was kind of strange how it just jumped on me there. Where'd it go? Let me fall back up. So Micron up $20 today. SanDisk, $43 gain on the day. Remember, we talked about how volatile SanDisk is and how it swings in both ways. And yesterday we talked about, or earlier in the week, how it gave up $30, but I said it probably will gain it all back immediately. And we see that it's up closed over 661. We were talking about SanDisk pushing that 650 level and pushing back up above that, and we did it today. We hit 661 in this stock. You guys that own SanDisk have to be thrilled with today's performance. Western Digital picked up $11, and Seagate Technology almost $10 on the day overall. We're going to jump in and take a look at each one of those stocks in a minute. I'm going to talk to you about the technical performance that each one of them showed throughout the day, so make sure you stay for that part of the video. And I'm also going to show you some of the moving price targets for these stocks as well. But I first want to just talk about why they're operating differently. Why are we seeing a decoupling from these? Why is tech up, tech down and memory up? And it's the reality is in 2026, memory is no longer seen as tech. It is seen as utility now. You can't run an AI data center without it. Companies are pulling back costs in all other areas. They're pulling back travel. They're pulling back marketing efforts, but they are hoarding memory. Most investors are waiting for a dip in tech, but I can tell you there's probably not going to be a dip in memory. And the reason I say that is beyond the data centers, we see pushing towards the edge. We see pushing towards AI agents. Those later, the edge and the agents use exponentially more memory than we see today in the data center. So it'll be more DRAM, more high bandwidth, more flash. It is growing exponentially. The easiest way to understand the memory boom for those that are new to the channel, they're listening right now, the easiest way to understand how AI actually works is most investors think about the GPUs. They talk about the processors that are these GPUs that are needed to train the large language models, but those processors are just one piece of the system. AI models are incredibly data hungry. Every time a model is trained, it processes enormous amounts of data sets. Every time someone interacts with the model from an interface perspective, that model pulls data in real time from memory. That means that AI systems need massive amounts of DRAM, high bandwidth memory, flash, and long-term data storage. In other words, guys, AI is not a chip story. It's not a GPU story. It is a memory story. And that demand is growing faster than analysts have expected. We have seen huge price increases in all these advanced memory products and memory products in general because it can't keep up with the demand. Take a look at high bandwidth memory, HBM memory. We saw Samsung and SK Hynix come out and say it was a 20 or 30% increase or price hike in this for the 2026 contract year. If you take a look at DRAM, whether it's on the PC side or the server side, we originally analysts predicted to see a 55 to 60% increase in the first quarter of this year. They have revised that upward to a 90 to a 95% increase quarter over quarter for DRAM. And then when you take a look at flash and SSDs, flash memory prices, the NAND wafers have surged this quarter by 60%, up to 55 to 60% alone in this quarter. And enterprise SSDs, those are projected to increase by almost 55 to 58%. If you think about a consumer, these are driving up all the prices of our consumers, whether it's be laptops, smartphones, PCs. And for example, if we take a look at the SSDs, a 1 terabyte consumer SSD was formerly $45 at the end of last year. It's now you see prices well over $90, 100% increase in those products. And the HDDs overall, the hard disk drives, the cold storage, which needs to hold this massive data lakes that we see in our AI data centers, just seeing the same phenomenon, 30 to 40% increases for those over the last 6 months. We're seeing lead times with HDDs now going out 52 weeks. And if you wanted to get one of the fancier, the 44 terabyte ones, the more specialized, you have to wait 24 months now. That's exactly what is happening, why these are decoupling. You see this imbalance between supply and demand. And investors are seeing an industry that has supply constraints. It has surging demand. It has long-term contracts, as we see our memory suppliers locking up customers now for 12, 24 months. And it has multi-year visibility for revenues for these companies. Capital is flowing into these sectors because of those factors, into this sector because of those factors. It's exactly what we are seeing with memory stocks, where it's exactly helping you try to understand why it's operating differently, why it's decoupling. Because even as the broader market struggles with macro concerns, investors are buying companies that are tied to the AI infrastructure build out. They're buying the picks and the shovels. In other words, these stocks, these picks and shovels, and these memory stocks, they're not trading on headlines anymore. They are trading on fundamentals. So let's take a look at some of the companies overall on how they perform today. So let's jump in. Let's start. I'm going to go actually start from Micron overall instead of Seagate. So let's look at Micron. Micron, I would say, is a fortress consolidation today. If you look at how it performed in the second half of the day, the stock spent the bulk of the session in this tight consolidation you can see on your screen there. It ranged between 423 and 426. And guys, this is an incredibly bullish sign in a volatile market. It shows us that big institutions were holding the line while the rest of the market panicked. They were holding Micron. And if you look at the volume towards the bottom over there, you can see that, notice the volume spikes at the opening, nice green volume jump at the opening, and there was the steady accumulation bars throughout the afternoon. This wasn't just retail trading for Micron today. This was institutions positioning ahead of next week's earnings. Micron closed the session at 426. It was up over just about 5% or over 5% on the day. And even in the after hours, it's holding. It's staying around 425. Incredibly steady right now. It's refusing to give back its gains. And if you look at the RSI for it overall, it's hovering around the 63, 64. It's a sweet spot for Micron. It shows us that it still has strong momentum and buying pressure without being overbought. There is still room for this stock to run in the days ahead. Now let's jump over and take a look at SanDisk. You can see a very different technical view of how this stock performed today. This is kind of an ascending staircase. SanDisk delivered. It is the powerhouse of the group. It's the alpha of the sector of the group of the four of them. There's no question about it. And today was no different. It surged nearly 7% today in this ascending staircase view. It opened at 630.75 and immediately began a series of higher highs. Unlike Micron, which consolidated sideways, if you remember in that graph, SanDisk spent the entire afternoon in this steady ascending staircase pattern. The stock finished at 661, up almost $43 on the day. It actually touched an intraday high of almost 672 today, showing that the aggressive buying pattern all the way to the final bell today. The volume bars below, you can see in SanDisk, showed a massive surge of green buying pressure throughout the day. And it's very indicative of institutional accumulation. So big funds are moving into the stock as a safe haven for AI infrastructure overall. The RSI right now is a little high. It's at 76, but you can remember, you would say it signals overbought. But remember, in a structural super cycle that we're seeing right now with memory, it's not uncommon to see stocks have an RSI above 70 for being elevated for weeks as they continue to have bullish patterns and bullish buying cycles. So that doesn't worry me. I think SanDisk overall is undergoing a fundamental re-rating right now since it's separated from Western. And then speaking of Western, let's jump over and take a look at how they performed today. Western was it showed an impressive kind of defensive strength today. It didn't have the same vertical trajectory as SanDisk, but it did successfully decouple as the others did from the Dow's weakness today, and it finished in the solid green territory. It opened at 265 today, 265.98, and was immediately tested as the broader market tanked. It dipped to a session low of 265.34, so not a huge gap between the open and where it got down as a low, but it held that level firm. It closed at 272.29, up over $11 on the day. It briefly pushed as high as 278 today, 278.5 almost midday, showing that there's bullish pattern and the bulls are eager to test that 280 resistance level that we've seen before. The trading volume today for Western was about just over 8 million shares. And while this is below the 10 session average, the fact that the volume stayed steady during the climb indicates a controlled accumulation pattern for the stock. Investors are quietly building positions rather than panic buying on Western overall. The 50-day average, it's moved above that. The 50-day moving average was 253.54 for Western, so it's trading above that now. So in technical terms, Western Digital right now has transformed its old resistance of 250. That resistance, we broke through that. That's now become the concrete floor, in my opinion, for Western. And then let's take a look at Seagate, the last one of the group overall. Very similar pattern. You could see Seagate had a master class of market resilience today as well. It successfully held the line today as the broader indexes were under heavy fire. Seagate opened at 378.54 and was immediately hit also, just similar to a Western, hit by this oil shock sell-off, dipping into the session low of 377.14. However, you can see on the chart that this dip was met with aggressive buy the dip pattern, buy the dip volume that came back. Seagate spent the middle of the day battling that stiff resistance level of 388. It briefly poked its head above that level before settling back, and it closed the session at 383.71, a gain of just under $10, about 2.5%, 2.6% on the day. And while it ended slightly off its highs, finishing today in the green while the Dow was in a sell-off was a major victory for the stock. And guys, look at the RSI for Seagate. It's sitting at about 42 right now. Unlike its peers that are in that, potentially in that, you could say overbought territory, Seagate is technically chilled out at a beautiful level of 42. It means it has the most overhead room to run before it hits its technical ceiling. So that's what I saw overall with all four of those today. The decoupling was real today. I think we need to start talking about a structural reallocation that we're seeing. We need to stop thinking about just chips in general, and we need to start thinking about how these stocks are moving differently and how we're seeing kind of a structural reallocation, as I mentioned. Because in the old days, in the 2024 through 2022 through 24 cycle, if smartphone sales dropped, memory stocks died. But today, we're seeing smartphone shipments projected to shrink by 4%, even greater, I've seen analysts say. But yet the memory stocks are not affected. They're hitting all-time highs. Manufacturers are taking that silicon that would have gone to your phone and rerouting it to advanced memory. They're rerouting it to high bandwidth memory because of the higher margins and because of the demand for companies like NVIDIA with Blackwell and Vera and their Rubin chips coming out. These manufacturers are choosing higher margins over higher volume. And this is why the sector has decoupled from the consumer economy and attached itself to the AI infrastructure economy. Let's jump over and take a look at some price targets for these guys. I want to leave you on this note. If you look at Micron, you can see on the top of your screen, we're up, $20 on the day. Look at the most recent price targets. A lot of changes coming in, heading into their earnings next week. Well, Bush today adjusted to a 500. They went from 320 to 500, so we see a 17% upside over their price target. Mizuho is at a 480. Wells Fargo, 470. You see Wolf Research also earlier this week adjusted its price target on Micron to 500. A lot of upside there overall. You can see the average price in the middle of your screen there is about 420. So a little downside for where the stock is trading today. In my opinion, I think that's pretty low for an average target. Look at where everything else is sitting with these guys. Nice upside remaining in that stock. We jump over to take a look at SanDisk. You can see SanDisk, 661, they closed. Look at the price targets across all four there. Bernstein, Cantor, Bernstein again, a couple different analysts there, all in the $1,000 range, 800 range, significant upside remaining according to these analysts in SanDisk, upward to 50% increase. So many people say, is it too late to get into SanDisk? I would take a look at that. In my opinion, say it's not. You need to do your own assessment and your own risk tolerance levels, make sure it's the right fit for you. But there's a lot of room left in this stock to run. Even if you look at the average price target of 761 with a 15% increase from where it trades today. Let's look over at Western Digital. Western Digital, you could see price targets from the last five. These haven't changed much. Again, these stocks probably need to be re-rated. They haven't seen price move since February, despite all the demand and action we've seen in the market. But even still, you see a range of 285 from Susquehanna, pretty low on the low end for me, but it's there, 5% upside from where the stock is trading to where we see 420 up to the middle, like 335 overall. Significant upside. Average of 321, so about an 18% upside for where the stock is trading today. And then finally, just Seagate, let's call that out. Seagate's average price target is 475, about 24% upside from where the stock is trading today. And if you look on the screen, whether it's Mizuho, UBS, Cantor, Bernstein, they're all significantly at 500. Let's say 440 is the low, up to about, we see a high of 650. So significant upside for some of those as well. Lots of room to run for these stocks, guys. That's why I wanted to just show that to you. Hopefully maybe give you some confidence overall. And I'd say as we look at today, when you really step back and take a look at what happened today, the takeaway for me is simple. Hopefully it is for you as well, is when the market debates inflation, and while traders worried about oil prices today, while macro headlines dominated the conversation overall, the AI infrastructure build out is continuing in the background. It's quietly continuing in the background. We know the money's invested. These places are being built. Data centers are being built. Storage systems are being deployed, and memory demand keeps climbing. And if that trend continues the way many insiders believe it will, then companies like Micron, SanDisk, Western Digital, and Seagate Technology may end up playing one of the most important roles in the next phase, in the next phase of the technology cycle. It's not the most glamorous role, but possibly the most profitable role. And if today's trading action was an indication, investors are starting to realize that. They're starting to take notice. The volatility hasn't disappeared, but the floor has moved up for these stocks. As we head into next week's earnings for Micron, don't watch the price, watch the lead times. The future isn't just being written, it's being stored. Stay optimistic, stay invested, and I'll see you guys on the next one tomorrow. Take care. Hope you have a great